In 1925, a man walked into a luxury hotel in Paris, gathered 6 of the city's wealthiest scrap metal dealers into a private room, and told them something absolutely insane. The French government wanted to secretly sell the Eiffel Tower for scrap metal, and he was the official in charge of finding a buyer. Every single word of it was a lie, and one man believed it enough to pay him a fortune. His name was Victor Lustig, and this was not even his most impressive con. After successfully selling the Eiffel Tower once, he came back to Paris months later and sold it again, to a completely different buyer, using the exact same story. This is the story of one of the most audacious confidence men in history. Welcome back to Plain English Guide. Today's story proves that the most successful cons rarely involve violence or threats. They involve confidence, timing, and a deep understanding of human psychology. Let's get into how this man pulled off one of the boldest scams in history. Victor Lustig was born in 1890 in what is now the Czech Republic. He was multilingual, well-educated, and naturally charming. By his 20s, he had already developed a career as a con artist on transatlantic ocean liners, running card games and small swindles on wealthy passengers crossing between Europe and America. He was good at it, but he wanted something bigger. In May 1925, Lustig was reading a Paris newspaper when an article caught his attention. The Eiffel Tower, built in 1889 as a temporary structure for the World's Fair, was falling into disrepair. The article mentioned the enormous cost of maintaining it and speculated that the city might eventually consider alternatives. Most readers skimmed past it. Lustig saw an opportunity nobody else could imagine. Lustig's plan was breathtaking in its simplicity and audacity. He had fake government stationery printed bearing the seal of the Ministry of Posts and Telegraphs. He used these forged documents to present himself as a high-ranking government official tasked with a secret and sensitive assignment, finding a private buyer to purchase the Eiffel Tower for demolition and scrap. He identified 6 of the wealthiest scrap metal dealers in Paris and sent each of them an official-looking invitation to a confidential meeting at the luxurious Hotel de Crillon. The letter explained that due to the tower's deteriorating condition and high maintenance costs, the French government had decided, quietly, to avoid public outcry, to sell it for scrap. All 6 dealers attended. Lustig played the role of the government official perfectly, formal, slightly bureaucratic, and convincingly burdened by the secrecy of the assignment. He explained that the demolition needed to remain confidential until finalized. Citing concerns about public sentiment toward the beloved landmark, he then invited all 6 men on a tour of the tower as potential buyers. Lustig took the men to the actual Eiffel Tower and walked them through its structure as though conducting genuine due diligence for a real sale. The absurdity of the situation, 6 businessmen seriously evaluating the demolition value of one of the most famous structures in the world, worked entirely in his favor. Nobody questioned the premise, because the premise itself was too strange to doubt. Among the 6 dealers, Lustig identified one André Poisson as particularly insecure about his standing among the established Parisian business elite. Poisson was relatively new to wealth and desperately wanted to be seen as an insider, someone trusted with important confidential matters. Lustig recognized this insecurity immediately and used it as his primary lever. Lustig approached Poisson privately and admitted, in a carefully calculated tone of vulnerability, that his government position paid poorly and that he was struggling financially despite his important role. This was the second layer of the con, suggesting, without directly asking, that a bribe could secure Poisson the winning bid and ensure smooth, fast finalization of the sale. Poisson took the bait completely, eager to prove himself among Paris's business elite and secure what he believed was a historic and exclusive deal. He paid Lustig for the tower itself and additionally paid a substantial bribe to guarantee his position as the winning buyer. The total amount Lustig walked away with would be equivalent to well over $1 million today. Lustig immediately left Paris for Vienna with the money. He expected Poisson to eventually realize he had been conned and report it to the police. But days passed, then weeks. No police report ever surfaced. Poisson never came forward at all. Investigators and historians later concluded the reason was simple and deeply human. Poisson was too humiliated to admit publicly that he had paid for the Eiffel Tower and additionally paid a bribe to win a completely fraudulent deal. Reporting the crime meant publicly confirming exactly the kind of gullibility and desperation for status that he had spent his entire career trying to hide from Parisian society. Emboldened by Poisson's silence, Lustig made an extraordinary decision. He returned to Paris months later and ran the exact same scheme again. Different forged documents, a different group of scrap dealers, the same elaborate story about secretly selling the tower for demolition. This time, however, his new target grew suspicious and alerted the police before the deal could be finalized. Lustig fled to the United States just ahead of arrest. In America, Lustig continued his criminal career with even greater audacity. He became infamous for inventing and selling a fictional money-printing device he called the Romanian box, convincing wealthy buyers it could duplicate genuine currency. He sold multiple units of this completely fake machine to gullible investors across the country, including reportedly to organized crime figures who were furious upon discovering the deception. Lustig was eventually arrested by the United States Secret Service in 1935, not for the box scheme, but for an extensive counterfeiting operation he had built using genuine engraving expertise stolen during his years of fraud. He was convicted and sentenced to 20 years at Alcatraz Federal Penitentiary, where he died of pneumonia in 1947. What makes this story so endlessly fascinating is not just the audacity of the lie, it is the psychology underneath it. Lustig did not need violence or even sophisticated forgery to succeed. He needed only confidence, official-looking paperwork, and a target whose insecurities he could identify and exploit. The most effective scams throughout history rarely rely on the victim being unintelligent. They rely on the victim wanting something badly enough, status, insider access, exclusive opportunity, that they suspend their usual skepticism. Poisson was not foolish. He was vulnerable to a very specific kind of manipulation that targeted his desire to belong. The same psychological lever still powers investment scams, fake exclusive deals, and confidence schemes today. If something requires absolute secrecy, urgency, and a willingness to bypass normal verification, those three elements together are one of the oldest red flag patterns in the history of fraud. Lustig understood this instinctively a century ago. The pattern has not changed. Only the costumes have. The Eiffel Tower still stands today, of course, never actually sold, never actually demolished. Victor Lustig remains one of the most studied con artists in criminal history, not for violence, but for sheer audacity. If this story entertained and informed you, hit subscribe. New videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. See you Friday. This video is based on documented historical events surrounding Victor Lustig and the 1925 Eiffel Tower scam. Some details have been dramatized for storytelling purposes. This video is for educational and entertainment purposes only.